Today on CityCast Chicago, after weeks of road closures and a healthy amount of skepticism from city residents, NASCAR weekend is almost here. And whether you're trying to avoid the area, enjoy the race, or you just want to know why Chicago is doing this at all, we've got everything you need to know. It's Thursday, June 29th. I'm Jacoby Cochran, and this is what Chicago's talking about. First, here's what's happening at Grant Park this weekend. The races are Saturday and Sunday along portions of Columbus Drive, Jackson Boulevard, Michigan Avenue, Roosevelt Road, Balboa Drive, and DuSable Lakeshore Drive. Plus, there are concerts. Tickets start at $269 for a two-day pass, but the races will also be broadcasted on NBC. Hey Chicago newsletter editor Sydney Madden has got a guide with all of these details, plus more on road closures and other events happening outside of downtown this weekend. Find it in the show notes and make sure you sign up for our newsletter at chicago.citycast.fm. So when we polled our CityCast listeners and Hey Chicago readers, the vast majority of you said this whole NASCAR thing is a bad idea. You said it would be noisy and crowded. We've all seen the traffic or had our bus rerouted, plus pollution. Not to mention the politics of it all. As reader Nick C. put it, frankly, it just feels like yet another decision that impacts all of us, but was made over our heads without any of our input and without any real benefit to any of us. But some of you had more mixed opinions.
Hey, CityCast, this is Joel calling from Lakeview. Here's my take on NASCAR. It's going to be noisy, it's disruptive, it's hypocritical, with all of the street racing noise nonsense that we've been hearing about. But I actually think it's going to be a good thing. Chicago has been a punching bag in the national media, and I think that a lot of the NASCAR viewers are probably among those who are fed that dishonest and harmful storyline. But when those NASCAR fans come to Chicago or see it on TV, they'll experience a little more of that beautiful Chicago reality themselves that we know and love. And maybe they won't quite buy into that politicized storyline as much. And if that's what happens, well, that'll be a good thing.
What Joel is talking about seems to be part of the goal here, according to Don Ingle. He teaches sports communication at DePaul University, and he explains why Chicago and NASCAR are doing all of this. Don, welcome to CityCast Chicago.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
NASCAR has promoted this as their first ever street race. Why do you think Chicago pushed so hard to bring the race to the Loop?
Well, it's a tremendous opportunity from a number of perspectives. The first is that Chicago is going to draw NASCAR fans from all throughout the Midwest. And so all the hotels are full, all the restaurants will be booked. Meg Miles says it's $100 million plus weekend for this race. So there's the obvious economic benefit to the city. But I think also the city is looking to promote itself as a larger scale event marketing place to come. So the NASCAR series really taking over the Loop for a couple of days is really going to be exciting. And it's going to draw a different kind of fan, which is what is going to appeal so much to NASCAR.
What do you mean by that in terms of not only positioning Chicago as, a place for these type of events? Because I'm like, we've had the NBA All-Star Game. We had the WNBA All-Star Game. Obviously, we haven't had the Super Bowl here, and maybe that'll change in years to come. But, it is a place where, music artists are constantly coming through. You see big sports events. What's so major about this particular race?
Well, I think for NASCAR, television ratings have been declining for 5 years or more. And they've lost millennials and Gen Z audiences who kind of grew up with it, but then just walked away from it a little bit. So bringing a race in the city, appealing particularly to Gen Z because they love special events, and also millennials love special events. And as long as the weather holds up, I think the turnout from those audience is a real opportunity for NASCAR to bring back more fans and some who have walked away from the sport in the past several years.
We talk a lot about reaching new fans. Who is this event really for? The NASCAR diehards, or for, bringing in people who might not be familiar but want to see, Fast and the Furious in the streets without, of course, the spaceships?
Sure. Well, of course, it's everybody. NASCAR wants everybody. So that's the short answer. But, you start out with the diehard NASCAR fans who get to see and experience this in a totally new and different venue. It's a thrilling visual backdrop, of course. It's a, once in the country, there's probably 3 or 4 places that could look as appealing as this course does with for this race, with the city of Chicago and Lake Michigan and everything else. It's just beautiful. And, for NASCAR, again, they can attract their NASCAR fans from places like Indy and St. Louis and Milwaukee and Iowa and places like that. So the race itself and the racing itself is going to be different, new, exciting, and kind of once in a lifetime. But also reaching the new fans and showing them NASCAR in this exciting venue and this new way could have a lasting impact.
We're always putting you on local hits here at CityCast Chicago, and your boy has got another one for you. Revolution Brewing is the largest independently owned brewery in Illinois, and this summer, you gotta try their Freedom Lemonade. Basically, it's lemonade, but with ale instead of water. Yeah, you're starting to picture it. At just 4.5% ABV, it's a great option for anyone enjoying the day outdoors, even if you're not usually into beer. You can find it at Revolution Brewing's tap room in Avondale, or the Original Brew Pub in Logan Square, or wherever else Revolution beer is sold. And be sure to check out their other Chicago-made offerings at revbrewing.com. That's REV brewing.com. What has to happen this weekend for this event to be considered a success by both sides?
No injury accidents. Accidents happen, but nothing with serious injuries. Total safety, which I think the course has they've done a really good job of protecting the fans with the design of the course. And the final thing is, 3 of the top 5 drivers finishing in the top 5 would also be good because they've got the most loyal fans.
I've seen some of the breakdown of like what the course will look like. I've seen some of the construction sites and the traffic jams, but can you speak a little bit more to the specifics of how they're going to protect fans?
From what all the media coverage I've seen says is that they've put a special emphasis on bringing it very close to the fans, seeing them come by often. I believe that the amount of time and attention that NASCAR put into this and the amount of support they got from the city of Chicago with the Streets and Sand people, having everything ready to go fairly early. And even though that did cause some traffic jams, they weren't too bad. I was potentially in one night, and all I had to do was turn 2 blocks early and cut around and miss Jackson, and I was fine.
Our producer is convinced it's going to spin out into the lake. I keep telling them I feel like it's just far enough away, and with all of the additional turns they're built in, maybe it won't happen, but they're convinced.
Your job is to look at it from all perspectives, and that's a great idea. However, I think it's a 90+% sure thing positive event with no serious side effects expected.
Mm-hmm. You're obviously covering this from an events perspective, but how do you feel personally?
We worked on NASCAR in 2020, and I got more interested in NASCAR than I had been previously. For me, the excitement is really strong, and I think that it's such a positive for both the city and for NASCAR. And I think the beautiful images that will come through, those will last a long time. We'll see them being posted in social media during the race. We'll see them afterwards, and I think those images are gonna live on. And I think it's something that NASCAR can then take to other markets in the future. And I think for Chicago, we can attract more similar kinds of events like this. See how that goes. But $100 million extra over this Thursday and Friday is going to be, money in the bank for people who need it, because travel and tourism has obviously been down for a long time. So this sort of puts an exclamation point on all of that.
We have heard from a few listeners, residents of Chicago, who, they don't see what the benefit is. They don't watch NASCAR. They're not fans. They only, come up with the traffic. What would you say to those people who just want to avoid it?
Well, they can avoid it. It's easily avoidable. And it's only 2 days. And like I said, the streets in San People are going to tear everything down and get the streets open on July 3rd. And as long as everything is back to normal for the 4th of July, so we can have another 1.5 million people downtown, for the 4th, everything will work out just fine.
Well, Don, I appreciate you for making time for CityCast today to talk us through this real cool event that's coming up.
Well, thanks so much for having me. It's been a lot of fun.
Don may be on to something about NASCAR trying to broaden its audience. Sure, Chicago is no stranger to street races, but I don't personally know a lot of NASCAR fans. So I was a little surprised at just how excited some of my friends are for this event.
What's going on? It's Adam from South Shore. I'm looking forward to hearing that rubber burn and watching NASCAR on Lakeshore Drive in our beautiful city of Chicago.
Yo, Chevy, reporting from the south side of Chicago. I will be live and direct at the event, trying to see these cars do things I never seen done legally on the streets of Chicago. So it's going to be lit time, good atmosphere. First city in America to do it. Why not be the go?
Yo, it's Jonathan from South Shore. I'm excited about the NASCAR race because I've seen on video games that I've played during my childhood all of these races going on in these different cities, and it's kind of tripped out to see it happening in my city.
This is Josh from Hyde Park. Very excited for NASCAR to be here in Chicago. I feel as though the layout of the city is perfect for it, and then the excitement and energy it will bring will mesh well with everything else that's going on as far as summertime Chicago goes.
Still, there are a lot of questions about how big events like this and our public parks benefit the people of Chicago, especially when NASCAR is projected to bring in just a third of the amount of money that, say, a Lollapalooza will later this summer. Y'all also have some thoughts about how we can make these events work better for Chicagoans.
Hey, CityCast, this is Viral from Rogers Park. And I have a lot of thoughts on NASCAR. On one hand, I see where everyone's coming from regarding the frustration of giving private companies control and access of our public land. It's a huge disruption to the people who live there, to the people who commute in and around there. And also, I think it's kind of frustrating when we're in this climate where we're talking about transportation and, moving away from cars, that we're celebrating and promoting an industry that's all cars. But on the other hand, look, this is going to make so much money for the city, millions of dollars in tax revenue. It's going to support our hospitality industry, our restaurant industry, which have been heavily hit by COVID. And so sort of the compromise that I feel is appropriate is in line with what State Representative LaShawn Ford has proposed for Riot Fest, which is that there should be a 2% special event tax applied to raise revenue to help support that immediate area. We can build more bike lanes, support more bus-only lanes, and improve transit movement in and around Grant Park. And so I feel like that's the appropriate compromise, in my opinion, where, we want the cool events to happen, but we want to make sure that when they make money, that money is going to that area and improving it so that, we're not just having these private companies make bank off of public land and then we don't see any of the payoff.
Before I let you go, a little bit of news, y'all. Chicago's air quality continues to suffer due to Canadian wildfire smoke. The haze is expected to improve today, but officials are still recommending masking and limiting outdoor activities where possible. Chicago Board of Education President Miguel Del Valle is stepping down tomorrow after 4 years leading the board. It'll be up to Mayor Brandon Johnson to appoint a replacement. Starting next year, Chicago will begin transitioning to an elected school board. And some good news. Antojitos, Chicago's two-day Latin American Comedy Fest starts tomorrow at IO Theater in Lincoln Park before moving to the Logan Square Improv Theater Saturday. You can check the show notes for more info and tickets. As always, we appreciate you for listening. Make sure you're following along with our daily newsletter, Hey Chicago, at chicago.citycast.fm. We're back bright and early tomorrow to break down some key stories from the week. I'll talk to you then. Peace. But Kobe, you told us about that earlier. Why are you repeating it? Because it's the best damn newsletter in Chicago, and I shouldn't have to repeat myself, but I will, until every single one of you 2.7 million individuals are signed up. We will take over the world.